Sunbelt football getting some TV respect. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We do have a full episode and not just one topic today. As it turns out, we'll talk about the games that were announced on TV on yesterday across the nation. We got a little Ragin Cajuns preview in heading to Miami. We found out a little bit about Texas and Ragin Cajuns Jordan Brown withdrawing from the NBA. Does he return to the Ragin Cajuns? But first, how about the respect that all of a sudden the Sun Belt Conference is getting football-wise? I'm not sure why I guess I do know why. We don't announce all the games because unlike pro football, college football is going to determine when you play. Like they flex these games every week. I complain about the NFL games, but you don't know when, not so much the Cajuns or Coastal Carolina, but LSU doesn't know when they're playing. 11, 2:30, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, don't know when. So the football, it's 2 weeks in advance, gives you notice. So they can flex anytime. So they don't announce all the games all at once because they want the better ball games. If a quarterback gets hurt, we're not going to want them because they're not going to be quite as good. So you just never know. So there's more flexibility in college, and they're not flexing days like the NFL wants to Thursday. They're flexing times on that Saturday. All right, so let's take a look at some of these games early on. And again, I've been mentioning this for a while. Can Tulane, can you open up the season with a trap game? And it's not to belittle South Alabama because I think South Alabama can have one of those Ragin Cajun seasons. All right, they have 2 ball games on the road against what is going to be top 25-ish teams, if not, one a Power 5 team. And you win those games, and all of a sudden you're ranked, and the way the rankings work, you're going to find yourself in the top 15 if you don't lose in the Sun Belt. All right, that's a little, I don't want to say a pipe dream. I think it's realistic, but you do have 2 tough games. So they start off with, South Alabama starts off with at Tulane. That's going to be on ESPNU. That's not on ESPN Plus. It's not on ESPN3, although there's not an ESPN3 anymore. It is on the U. So that's nationally televised ball game. It is not being streamed. Later that night, Coastal Carolina taking on UCLA on ESPN. Last year's South Alabama ball game was like on the Pac-12 network. Like we had difficulties watching it last year. I think we had to sign up for a cable streaming service for like a day, and we did that. But now Coastal Carolina is taking on UCLA. I'd be careful I was UCLA, but I don't think Chip Kelly is going to have any issue, warning his players, hey, see what happened last year against South Alabama? Be ready because Coastal Carolina is pretty good as well. Now, oddly enough, the next week, or in 2 weeks, I should say, the South Alabama is playing Oklahoma State. That is on ESPNU. That's very odd. I don't get that at all. That is very interesting. All right. Now you got a tough ball game on September 9th. It's on ESPN Plus. Oklahoma State and South Alabama are on ESPN Plus. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. The Tulane game is on ESPNU, but the Oklahoma State game is on ESPN Plus. Wasn't the whole point of playing a Power 5 team? You get a check and you're on TV. That's the whole point. Anyway, it is what it is. But James Madison is taking on Virginia. That's a huge ball game. James Madison at Virginia. I mean, Virginia is going to be nervous about that ball game. They're going to talk all cocky about it. But James Madison is going to be, hyped about it. Then you got Troy at Kansas State on FS1. These are some major ball games that are taking place nationally. And I think it's fantastic because, you're going to soon getting into this playoff spot and 12 teams are going to be there. And if somebody can have a special season where maybe they beat that Power 5 team that isn't a top 10 team in the country, you're going to have a chance to make that playoff, right? It's not going to be a Cincinnati thing. Well, they should be one of the top 4 teams. No, this is going to be the top 12 teams. We got a couple years to go before that, but it's going to be a possibility. All right. You got, in week 3, September 16th, we said about South Alabama and Oklahoma State. Maybe that's picked up later on if South Alabama wins it. If South Alabama beats Tulane and they're a top 25-ish team, that very well could get picked up by ESPN. That is a 6 p.m. game. All right. But right now you got Wake Forest at Old Dominion, ODU hosting Wake. How awesome is that? They're on either ESPN2 or the Deuce. I mean, it's outstanding. A&M is taking on ULM. Again, I'm presuming A&M will be ready for a Sun Belt team based on what happened last year. But, they are getting some – I think I just saw the Cajuns at UAB are playing on ESPN+. You just have, this expanding audience that is going to see the Sun Belt. We always get those midweek ball games. Some teams like them. Those Tuesday games are kind of brutal. Let's be honest. The Tuesday games are all for TV. It's really tough to get to a Tuesday ball game. All right. We've just had the weekend. We've settled into the week. Everyone's got school, right? We all got jobs. And so it's really hard to go to a Tuesday ball game. Some of those crowds are not the best. Thursday's a little bit different because Thursday kind of feels like the weekend, although there's still school and there's still jobs. But that sort of feels like the weekend. You do have Georgia State at Coastal Carolina. These are conference games on September 21st. That's on ESPN. Coastal at App State, always a good matchup, ESPN2. Southern Miss at South Alabama, big ball game. That's on ESPN2. That's a Tuesday night. James Madison at Marshall on a Thursday night, ESPN or ESPN2. Georgia State at Georgia Southern, ESPN2. South Alabama at Troy, which could be for the division title, ESPN2. And Southern Miss taking on the Cajuns here in Lafayette, ESPNU. That's awesome. All right. I mean, that is not ESPN Plus. Those are nationally televised ball games. And sometimes those are the only games in town. They go up against the NFL, but it is what it is. Now, the other thing, as we wrap up this first segment, on a Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Also, the Sunbelt Championship game is going to be 3 p.m. either could be on ABC. The Sunbelt tweeted out for the first time ever, the Hercules Tire Sunbelt Football Championship game is in contention for the 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time slot on ABC, Saturday, December 2nd. The 4 prior championships have been broadcasted on ESPN. So we'll see what happens there. It could be, and again, if you have, what happens if you have this undefeated Coastal Carolina team and maybe an undefeated South Alabama team? I don't think South plays Coastal. I guess you could check that out. But what happens if you have 2 top 25 teams? That's going to be fantastic. You very well could have that in a Sun Belt championship game. So the Sun Belt football is getting all kinds of publicity, and we're looking forward to it. We are not that far away, right? We're less than 100 days away until the kickoff of a college football, and we're about 6 weeks away to the unofficial kickoff of college football. SEC Media Days are first, and then the Sun Belt Media Days follow them, and then basically it's football camp. That's the end of July. So we are just not that far away, and looking forward to getting going as I am now back in Lafayette. We'll be obviously covering the Cajuns more than others. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back and talk about the Ragin Cajuns and others playing in the regional, but we'll focus mostly on the Ragin Cajuns. They're heading down to Miami. There may have been a little bit of good news as they're taking on the Texas Longhorns coming up here on Friday. But first, let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. All right, make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better place to bet all of your playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. On a separate topic concerning the same thing, on my radio show on 103.3 The GOAT here in Lafayette. We just started talking about Derek Carr. The Saints not only have one of the easier schedules all season, but we found out that 13 of the Saints' 17 games are inside. 8 in the division, 9 in the division, right? All the home games, and then the one at Atlanta. And then they're playing the Vikings, the Rams, the Colts, the Texans. I mean, they're all inside. Like the Packers, Titans, and New England are all outside, and the Panthers are outside. That's it. And all of those are before Halloween. So Derek Carr on FanDuel plus 3,500 for the MVP. Sneaky long shot bet for NFL MVP. All right, back to the task at hand. Ragin' Cajuns going to take on the Texas Longhorns in the NCAA Regionals Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Time. And Texas has some issues. They have an outstanding lineup. They have 5 guys that have double digits in home runs. Then you have Dylan Campbell, who's got 12 home runs, good for tie for second on the team, and 25 stolen bases. Leading the way with home runs is Eric Kennedy, 16. All these guys are hitting over 300 as well. So you have Peyton Powell, the best hitter on the club, Dylan Campbell, you have Porter Brown, Garrett Giamet, and Eric Kennedy, all with more than 10 home runs. You have some outstanding starting pitching. Lucas Gordon, 6-1 with a 2.25 ERA. LeBaron Johnson Jr., 7-3 with a 2.82 ERA. Outstanding starting pitching. Then it gets a little shaky with the bullpen. And we had Chip Brown on from Horns 24/7 saying they have a great lineup and they have outstanding starting pitching. Get past the starting pitching or that lineup goes cold, then they could have issues. Well, if anyone's lineup goes cold, it could be issues for them. But they do not have the back of the bullpen, and the bullpen is what ended up being really the strength for the Ragin' Cajuns in that Sun Belt Conference tournament. All right. DJ Burke all of a sudden is going to the transfer portal. He was 1-0 in 15 appearances, couple of starts, with a 2.22 ERA. Heston Toll, in 19 appearances, no record, did have 1 save, 1.90 ERA. David Shaw, 26 appearances, 1 save. He had a 3.09 ERA. According to Chip Brown, Heston and Shaw were 2 of the better guys out of the bullpen. A nice lefty-righty 1-2 punch. They're hurt. They're not going to be available. And apparently the Longhorns bullpen was kind of in question to begin with. And now they're not down 1 guy. They're not down 2 guys. They could be down 3 guys. And so we'll see if that ends up being an advantage for the Cajuns. Remember, double elimination. And at the same time, the Cajuns don't have to worry about play. You don't have to play 6 games in this tournament, right? You may have to play 5. So if you win the first game and lose to Miami, right? Say you got to beat Texas again, that's 3 games, and then you'd have to beat Miami twice. That'd be 5. We're just using that for an example. But if you beat Texas, and then we'll just say, for argument's sake, beat Miami, then at the most you'd only have to beat Miami 2 more times. So that'd be 4. And so we'll see if the Cajuns can get into the Longhorns bullpen, because again, the starting pitching is going to have to be good for the Cajuns because they got a powerful lineup and a good hitting lineup. But if somehow they can get into that pitch count against Gordon and Johnson, they could be in pretty good shape if they can keep it close and come back, because they came back a lot in that Sun Belt Conference tournament, right? They were down to Texas State. They came back. They were down to Coastal. They came back. The second game against Coastal, they were up, and Coastal tied it up, and then they took the lead again. But they came back a lot, so they can do that if given the opportunity, if not getting blown out. And when I say come back, I mean not more than 3 runs heading into the 7th inning. A little bit more than that, then it's going to take something special. Then it's a little bit out of the ordinary. I always thought, I know everybody always thinks that, you want it to be more than 4 runs or more, so a grand slam doesn't hurt you. The grand slams are so unusual. I'm always a big thing. The biggest thing to me is 3-2-4, actually, not 4-5, because it doesn't take much to get 2 on, right? Hit, walk, error, hit batsman. LSU would complain about catcher's interference, but it doesn't take too much to get 2 on. It takes a little bit more to get 3 on and get them around. So I'm a big believer. If you're within 3, you got a shot to come back. All right. And of course, Coastal Carolina hosting their regional. Southern Miss is going to Auburn, and Troy probably can't commute. We kind of joked about that earlier in the week. They're going to Tuscaloosa, and they will be in the Alabama regional. And again, Coastal Carolina is a great story. Their coach has decided to call it a career after next season, right? You have Southern Miss, Scott Berry already deciding he's going to call it quits after this season. And you have Alabama, actually, who is hosting, and it's a crazy story because maybe, allegedly, their coach was betting against them. And now not only did they make the tournament, but they're hosting a regional. So, and again, I happen to think that, Coastal's going to be favored to win theirs, right? They're hosting. Southern Miss can go into Auburn and, handle that. All right, that's competitive. And we'll see what Troy can do going up against Alabama. Cajuns may have a little bit of a difficult time. Miami is really good. All right, Miami is a very, very good baseball team. Big-time lineup, and they don't have bullpen issues. They have an outstanding bullpen. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, news floated. It came out last night, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But the Ragin' Cajuns basketball team may have gotten some help for the upcoming season. We'll talk about that next. All right, again, thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. We're continuing to grow. We still have, maybe, 3 weeks of baseball, depending on what happens this weekend and next weekend, and we'll continue to follow that. It's a little bit of downtime, a lot of camps going on in football, right? And so they're kind of doing some home recruiting, if you will. The recruits are coming to them instead of them going to the recruits. So we'll keep up with that. And then we're actually going to be doing the show from Mama Schultz's deck. That'll be a lot of fun. And we'll do that at the end of June. And then, again, the month turns to July, and there's like 1 week, and then it's SEC Media Days and Sunbelt Media Days, and we're looking forward to all of that. So please, as they say, keep it locked in here. Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We're looking forward to what should be a fantastic college football season. All right, back at it. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. You're listening and watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. News came down last night. I didn't see it until this morning. John Sepkovich, let's see who that is, Director of Scouting for DraftExpress.com, a private scouting and analytics service utilized by NBA, NCAA, and international teams. He reports Louisiana, and he tweeted this out, Louisiana's Jordan Brown has withdrawn from the 2023 draft, I am told. Averaged 19.3 points a game, 8.6 rebounds a game, 1.8 assists a game, 1.2 blocks, en route to being named the Lou Henson Player of the Year. That's the mid-major Player of the Year. First team All-Sunbelt and Sunbelt tourney MVP. Former McDonald's All-American with 1 year of eligibility remaining. Okay. So he's not in the NBA draft. And Jordan Brown's a little bit old school. Okay, he can shoot a 15-footer. He can step out and shoot. I don't know if he's shooting threes. But he can't go to the NBA and come off the bench and give you 10-5 or 8-6 or something like that. I think he can. Now, where he's going to have issues is playing defense against some of these stretch fours, chasing these guys all over the court. That may be an issue. He may not be the most athletic big guy out there trying to cover somebody on the wing. But, boy, get him down low, and he's tough to cover as well. And he's a rebounding machine, okay? I thoroughly believe that. He really is. He didn't average a double-double. He very well could have. He had some help rebounding. I think he could be an NBA prospect. Come off the bench. If someone gets hurt, he can play. I think he can be. I don't know if he's going to be an NBA All-Star, but he could absolutely add depth to it. Now, what does he do coming back? he has graduated, so he can transfer and not have to sit out a year. He can grad transfer. Does he do that, or does he come back to the Ragin' Cajuns? So I'll give you another example of somebody that I pay attention to up in Syracuse. Judah Mintz came back, and he probably is going to get an NIL deal. He could find himself with a 6-figure NIL deal to come back to Syracuse. Compared to playing in the G League, less than the best possible facilities, right? Kind of minor league facilities, not bad facilities, but minor league facilities compared to what you got at Syracuse is outstanding. And what the Cajuns have is outstanding as well. That there's nothing minor league about what the Cajuns have facilities-wise. All right. They may not have as much as some Power 5 teams, but what they got is pretty good. And so, is Jordan Brown better suited to be with the Ragin' Cajuns than the G League, right? Or does he say, I can go to Europe and I can go play over there and start making money? He could do that. All right. He very well could do that. So he's graduated. Does he want to start on a master's? Does he want to start on a postgraduate degree? That is up to him. Obviously, if he does, that's paid for. But this is news that the Ragin' Cajuns could have their center power forward back, and that would be tremendous for the defending Sun Belt champions. And that, so that would be some good news for Bob Marlin. We'll keep an eye out on that. Again, the news is Jordan Brown has withdrawn from the NBA draft. The deadline was a Wednesday night. We don't know if the word is if he's coming back to play for the Ragin' Cajuns. Stay tuned for that. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. We got some new graphics. And let's see if we can play the end of the video that we have to do. But I do appreciate you tuning in. We will be back with another edition of Locked On Sunbelt for Friday. And then we'll keep up with all of the regional baseball action this weekend and report to you back on Monday what happens. Again, thanks so much for watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.